All right. We're doing this. It's a special edition of Inside College Football presented by Old Trapper. It says we're live, Rick, Randy, Beanie. It doesn't feel the same, but this is real. Randy, you ready for the long distance holiday experience here as we embark? Huh?
That's right. Yeah, my wife gets ready for Christmas sometime immediately after Halloween.
Love it. Beanie, pumped to have you, especially with all of our alma maters, not enjoying the moments we've had.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I can add a little bit of encouragement to the conversation for you guys. You guys can live through me.
Yes.
In this combo.
This is a big week for you. This is a big week for you.
Not only am I jealous of you, Beanie, but I also want to move into your home. I'm ready. I'm ready to just come over. I just got a couple of things. I won't stay long.
Yeah, come on, man. My basement is like an apartment out here. Come on, join it.
And Rick's in the market.
I am in the market as I sit here amongst the venerable old Phoenix Country Club presidents right here. Yes,
that's what's happening there. Okay, I was wondering what was happening there. You are the nomad of all nomads, Rick.
Oh, just absolutely knapsack, trailer for sale rent, king of the road. That's me.
Love it. All right, guys, it was a little delayed. It's basketball season now at the same time, living that life, but the rankings are out. Very similar with all of the winning that took place among the top 14 from last week. USC was the highest ranked team to go down. Oregon and Ole Miss switching, Miami and Utah switching, Tulane still the highest ranked group of 5 team, no James Madison. Not a lot to digest as far as changes, but what's your overall takeaway from where we are at this point heading into rivalry week? And Beanie, why don't you start us off since your Buckeyes are on top?
Yeah, no, I'm not too concerned with the rankings and any changes. Obviously, looking at Ole Miss right there, dropping a spot. I thought Oregon played a great game last week versus USC. And I think that most certainly propelled them up in the rankings in the eyes of the committee. But nonetheless, I mean, it's rivalry week. There's still so much carnage to be had in the college football world. And I think it's all going to go down this weekend.
Isn't Beanie just a nice guy? I mean, yeah, nothing really surprising. My Buckeyes still at the top of the heap, Right. We're just resting receivers. We're resting people. But Beanie, you've got a big game this week. Those guys from what did they call it? The school up north?
Yes.
That's you realize when they can get to that, you don't ever get that one back. When they can put one on the thumb, this is a big week for Ohio State. How healthy do you think the Buckeyes are?
That's the number one question. Obviously we got Jeremiah Smith banged up, but I think he'll go. He came out on the podcast last week and talked about how, you have to stop him and put him in a straitjacket to not get him on that football field. But I don't know if the same is for Cornell Tate. He hasn't really done anything the last couple of weeks. And that's the concerning thing for me is when I look at Ohio State and you look at how they've been playing this year, they've been able to open it up on the offense because of their two-headed monster that they have at their receiver position. Now, if one of those guys is missing, how much different does this offense look? The last couple of weeks, they started to look human, and I do not like that idea, especially going to this week when you have to play a tough Michigan football team.
Randy, would you be as surprised this time around if Ohio State lost as we all were last year?
I tell you, I've been pretty stunned the last few times it happened. This would be the most shocking one, and I agree with Rick. Once you get towards the thumb, it's officially a trend.
Yeah.
And it's something that can start getting in your head. But yeah, I was, like I said, I was shocked last week or last year at this game. And I was more shocked the last couple of years how physically Michigan was able to handle Ohio State. And that's the one thing that even if you're a Buckeye and you're confident as hell, going into this game, you've got to remember that kind of taste you had from the last couple seasons.
They've been so dominant. They haven't trailed in the second half, yet they also haven't been tested. I don't know if I believe in that being a problem or not, but This is obviously a Michigan team that has a chance to still get to the Big Ten championship game if they can win this game, and then they'd be rooting for Washington to beat Oregon in the game that's on CBS. We can get back to this in a little bit. I want to hit the rankings a little more, especially because we have people putting stuff into the chat, which is awesome. I think I saw a question about how Texas Tech could possibly be ahead of Ole Miss, which is it's back there now. And Ole Miss dropped another spot. And, Ole Miss, they got the Egg Bowl, obviously. They got all the Lane Kiffin stuff swirling. The wins are the best wins at Oklahoma. They also have the win over Tulane and LSU. The loss is at Georgia. So there's no penalty there. Do any of you have a problem with Texas Tech being ahead of Ole Miss?
I think the reason that Texas Tech is ahead of Ole Miss is the dominant defense that Texas Tech has been playing with. Jacob Rodriguez is the cornerstone of that defense, but David Bailey, the guy they got from Stanford, the defensive end, is one of the leaders in the country, if he's not the leader in sacks. Texas Tech defensively looks like they can play with anybody. And I know whoever asked this question, I'll guarantee you is an SEC fan. Because say again?
Because of the fish. There's a lovely fish in this guy's profile picture.
Well, you're going to have to tell me that. I'm not looking at that. But the bottom line is SEC just believes that, the SEC just means more. Texas Tech being a Big 12 team, I understand the discount, but you have to understand that they spent SEC money for this roster. They went out and got the finest of meats and cheeses to go along with this particular roster. And Joey McGuire, their head coach, had nothing to do with that. That was all a guy by the name of James Blanchard with the Double Eagle Energy money, and he went out there and canvassed the country for the best possible talent, augmented by the kid from Stanford when all of a sudden Troy Taylor was let go in the summertime. So this is a real-life SEC-style defense, and that's the reason that you're sitting there ahead. The other thing that's interesting about Ole Miss falling right there and moving behind Oregon, the committee has now set themselves up to punish what's happening here, because what you have here is a coach who's basically running the show in terms of who has the leverage. And you can blame it on Lane or you can blame it on Jimmy Sexton, his agent. But what's happening here is they are playing a game of cat and mouse with Florida and LSU, clearly suitors for Lane. Who I don't think Penn State's even in this. I think it's the two SEC schools who clearly want Lane's services. And Jimmy Sexton has been playing this game in the SEC for years and years, having so many clients and moving people around. It's interesting that none of the clients have signed yet with anybody, re-upped, like a Rhett Lashley at SMU, like a Matt Rule at Nebraska. Nobody's redone that. The Sexton clients are waiting. And now that he's got this opportunity to wait till after the Egg Bowl on Saturday to announce where he's going, he can be out of town when he announces.
Yeah.
The key here is that the committee is sitting there going, wait a minute. Remember, the committee's comprised of a lot of athletic directors. And a way to push back on this is saying, okay, you want to do that? Here's what we'll do. Let's just say they win the Egg Bowl. When we make this final decision, just like Jordan Travis wasn't available for Florida State as their quarterback, and they knocked him out of a 13-0 team, saying they're not the same team, Lane Kiffin, no longer the head coach, can be a reason the committee moves them. And if they move them 2 spots now,
no home game.
2 spots, they're no home game.
Yeah.
And you talk about absolute pushback and anger, and now maybe we'll get the college football calendar changed where head coaches get to finish the dang season before they can be poached by another school. That's what needs to happen. And then the next question, Adam, is, okay, then you have to move recruiting. Yes, you move recruiting back to February where it belonged. Then you have to move the transfer portal. And that is exactly where the athletic directors want to be. They want to have all this at the end of the year, and I'm here for it. It makes no sense what we ask these coaches to do and the decisions and all the work that has to be done at this time of the year. It's 0 sense.
Isn't that basic human nature, though? I mean, on the committee's part, of how much different is Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin's not on the sideline? How much of an unknown is Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin in the headset?
it raises everybody's eyebrows as to how much do we need to give to this. But when it was convenient to put Alabama in, because Alabama beat Georgia in that year that Florida State fell from grace, right? Even though they were 13-0, and then Alabama had been beaten by Texas early in the year. Then all of a sudden Texas had to be in it. It made for a star-studded foursome in the college football playoff. That brings up the other issue in this deal. Miami inches closer to Notre Dame. They inch closer. They're at 12 now, and 9. They went ahead of Utah, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So that means, are they getting closer to being in the same pool, right? We heard Hunter Yuricich last week talk about, well, they're not being compared to one another because they're not in the same pool. What the committee does is take 4 teams and group them, and then they analytically challenge and go back and forth and rank those 4. Well, if you're not in the same 4, Miami and Notre Dame, then you don't get to the head-to-head. But as they inch closer, maybe they will be in the same 4, and now there'll be some absolute questions that will be hard for the committee to answer. You look down there and you see Pitt and Georgia Tech. Pitt's ahead of Georgia Tech. Why? Because Pitt just beat them. Well, what the heck is Miami doing behind Notre Dame? They haven't been ranked against each other. If all of a sudden Miami beats Pitt this week and does so in a convincing style as did Notre Dame, all of a sudden the quality wins of Notre Dame, which are Pitt and USC, all of a sudden, wait a minute, what are we doing? How is this different? And now you've got a head-to-head. It will be fascinating to see how they double speak that around the horn to get the Irish in.
And I want to open it up to Randy and Beanie on that matter, because Notre Dame and Miami, they're a spot closer in part because Utah gave up like 470 rushing yards to Kansas State. So Utah won that game. It was a crazy game, but Utah dropped that one spot. So right now you have Notre Dame 9, Bama 10, BYU 11, and then Miami at 12. So if BYU wins this weekend, they're going to face Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. If they win that game, they're in automatically. Is Texas Tech still ahead of an idle Notre Dame? Are they still ahead of Alabama? If Alabama gets to the SEC championship game and loses, because if they win the Iron Bowl, they're in. I mean, there's still a lot that could happen in that cluster of 4 teams, guys.
Is there any chance on this beautiful green earth that Notre Dame would be treated like a normal football team?
We know that isn't going to happen.
Is Mick Jagger Is Mick Jagger a normal rock and roller?
Yeah, exactly.
And in Notre Dame, Notre Dame's also looked fantastic, Beanie, right?
And that's the thing. Notre Dame is playing the best right now when it matters most. And I know we keep going back to the head-to-head matchup, that Notre Dame and Miami had earlier in the year, but it's a completely different ball game right now as you get later in the season. As you guys know, no team is the exact same as they were in the later part of August and September. All teams are different, especially if you're one of those teams talked about being mentioned in the college football playoff. I just think Notre Dame, in my opinion, is head and shoulders better than what the performance that they put out August 31st versus the University of Miami. They're playing defense at a much higher rate. Their offense is so much more efficient. That's why I really can't get there with the people out there that believe the University of Miami deserves to be over Notre Dame because of that head-to-head matchup. I think you got to go with your eyes. And right now, the eyes don't lie to me. Notre Dame is just that much better.
Yeah. There's recency factors. There's the argument about teams who had first-year starters at quarterback, first years in their career at quarterback. And look, Miami's best bet is to beat Pittsburgh and then hope for carnage. And I don't mean like ACC carnage, because the best meal we had this year was at Beppe and Johnny's in Eugene, and the scenarios that allow Miami to make it to the ACC championship games about the length of the menu for dessert. Best meal ever, Rick, but fantastic. It's going to be a lot for Miami to get there. They got a lot of it this past weekend, but there's still a lot of meat on that bone, including Virginia beating Virginia Tech, which you could see happening. but there's a lot there.
At the end of the day, Miami will have no one to blame but themselves for not winning the ACC, right? That's part and parcel, so they have to accept that. But when you have the same record as a team that is going to be in the playoff and you played them and you beat them, it is a hard pill to swallow that's not the first tiebreaker when you put the two schools together and compare. What Miami has to do is get in the same pool. And if they're in the same pool, what the hell are we talking about? It doesn't make any sense to me, other than Notre Dame are the Rolling Stones. And by the way, Jack Swarbrick, who was on the committee who put this 12-team college football playoff together, along with Greg Sankey, Bob Bowlesby, who was the commissioner of the Big 12, and then Craig Thompson, who was the commissioner of the Mountain West. Those four guys put this thing together. This means Swarbrick put this thing together, which now Notre Dame will have been part of it the first 2 years in its existence. Home game last year. We'll wait and see if they can move up and get to a home game again this year. The only thing they gave up as a concession for this was they couldn't be seated in the top four because they couldn't be a conference champion. We've already blown that rule out of the water. We've changed that. So anybody can be in the top four. So they've gotten that back. And the guy was a genius enough to hire Marcus Freeman. Beanie, did you play with Marcus, or was he a little older than you?
No, I played with Marcus my entire career at Ohio State.
I mean, he hired the guy. He could have had Luke Fickell and paid all kinds of money. He says, I see a superstar. Marcus Freeman is now the head coach. Swarbrick deserves a statue just like Jesus and Moses and everybody else at Notre Dame.
No doubt, but that probably will end up going down as one of the greater hires of the Notre Dame era in college football. He's done a fantastic job, and he's a leader of men, and we're watching that right now unfold, how his teams are playing, especially in the later part of the year.
So I think if we mention Notre Dame, people erupt in the chat, Randy. And so we have one comment here about they should be punished for not being in a conference. I mean, really, it comes down to them not having to play in a conference championship game and risk losing. Conference championship games may be endangered at some point in the near future, depending on how you view the world. But there also are some thoughts here about how Notre Dame would fare against SEC. This says a Georgia or Alabama offense. Wait till Notre Dame plays a Georgia or Alabama, their offense would be shut down. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily. I think there are some defenses out there that, and you talked about one, or Rick talked about one. I think Texas Tech would be an interesting matchup for them for sure. I really, really don't know. I look at it pretty simplistically. I don't think home games or buys especially, are any kind of great value. And I definitely, after just watching this last year or so, what's the advantage of being in your conference championship game? I mean, besides playing an extra game.
If the season ended right now, Notre Dame would go to Oklahoma and play, and we'd find out about a defense. Oklahoma's been stout defensively all season long, so we'd find out about that quickly. I listen, I think Notre Dame's fantastic, but here's the question: as we go forward in the high stakes poker of college athletics and college football, and I say college athletics simultaneously because college football pays for all the rest of college athletics. So as we go forward, remember the new athletic director after replacing Swarbrick is Pete Bavacqua, who was the president of NBC Sports. Okay, he was in charge of it. So he knows exactly what this television property is worth. So too do the other commissioners. And right now, they're willing to play ball with Notre Dame because Notre Dame's an icon. It moves the needle for college football. College football is better with Notre Dame as a strong brand. We've all seen when Notre Dame's down, and we lament those days because we'd like Notre Dame to be good. If Notre Dame keeps peeling off in this college football playoff era, and remember, they're not sharing any of this money. All these other teams that are going in as conference affiliates, they basically take one piece of the pie, and the rest of the pie gets divvied up to the rest of the conference. If Notre Dame keeps making it, there will be a push by other commissioners to say, look, we're not scheduling you in the regular season until you get in a conference. This advantage that you have is getting too great. And there will be push without anybody's name on it to make sure that the schedules are much more difficult to have. That's just natural economic principle. And while everybody understands Notre Dame's place in the history of college football and recognizes that and appreciates it, if this keeps going without necessarily the schedule that should merit their inclusion, we'll see how long those commissioners will allow it to go.
It's wild. And by the way, we jumped on here as soon as we could, as soon as the rankings were out. But the following interviews that took place on the ranking show, the CFP chair actually did say that Notre Dame and Miami were in the same grouping at a time this week and were directly compared. So
what gives? What the hell are we talking about?
It's recency stuff, man. It's the recency. It's the recency.
Better
Beanie, you're just smarter than me, man. You're just smarter than me. Or you got better eyesight. You see, I'm wearing glasses, Beanie. Right, I can't tell what a good football team looks like anymore.
Could be that. Hey, the other thing that they kicked the can on a little bit was the decision on whether to go to 16 and extending that deadline from December 1st. What was it, Rick, into January, right?
January 23rd.
So what do you guys think we're going to end up with? What do you think that they're crunching on in order to make this worth delaying? Is it still 16 with the disagreement being worked out as far as format of number of champs versus at large versus automatic bids per conference like the Big Ten seemed to want?
I think what I see as the big hurdle right now is whether Greg Sankey, whose league, the SEC, and the president at Mississippi State, who came out publicly, said the SEC favors at-large berths. So if we go to 16, it would be the 5 best conference champions and 11 at-large. No matter where they're from, let the committee make the determination who they think are the best teams. I think Tony Petitti of the Big Ten has been adamant that he wants automatic qualifiers. And he's willing to go 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC, 2 from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12, and then what does that leave? 4 and 1 group of 5, and then 3 at large. So that's what he's wanting to do. Mm-hmm. And then that way, as a subplot to that, he would have play-in games to determine who his 4 teams are. So 1 and 2 would qualify, 3 would play number 6, 4 would play number 5 for the other 2 spots, and we'll see if anybody else gets in as an at-large. But he creates more playoff games that way, which obviously adds to the coffers and the revenue for the Big Ten. So what I think is going to happen is because everything is about revenue generation. What I think is going to happen is if you go to 24, both these guys can have what they want. If you go to 24, both these guys are going to get their 4 at least. You can have them all be at large, but there will be at least 4. You can have your play-in games for the ones that you particularly want to have. And maybe we get a 16-team field with the other 8 spots playoffs to get to them. And we get rid of conference championship games.
Where are you going to put all these games, right?
Yeah. Get rid of the conference championship games. The most beautiful scenario that exists in the college football playoff since its inception is happening right now in Athens, Georgia. They are the 4 seed. They may not qualify for the SEC championship game if Texas A&M and Alabama win. I believe those 2 teams would be in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Alabama by virtue of their victory over Georgia. Obviously A&M by virtue of the fact that they're undefeated. If Georgia doesn't have to play in the SEC championship game and still gets a bye, they don't play till January 1. That is the most beautiful scenario in terms of health, getting everybody back. Kirby has won 4-team playoffs before. He knows exactly what the calendar should look like. It will be a Georgia Lollapalooza if that can come to fruition.
Wow, Rick. You've thought about this a bit.
Real in depth.
But what is the advantage? I know the answer is money, so I shouldn't even ask the question. But what is the advantage in a game that is kind of a survival sport to start with, to expanding these playoffs, or in this case, doubling these playoffs to where you have 24? I know, like I said, I know
money at this point.
I know
The answer is money. Now, what was the question? and take this into consideration. Take this into consideration, because this just happened today, or I just read about it today. We have a basketball tournament going on right now in Las Vegas. I think it's called the Players Era Tournament, where there's actual money being given to the players as they do well in the tournament. There's a pot of gold for the players, which is all under the guise of name, image, and likeness, or collectives, right? We also have a private entity out there snooping around trying to buy the 24-team playoff in the FCS, trying to buy that. And a number of presidents in the FCS are wanting to look at this and see what the numbers are. Right now, the NCAA owns that. And we'll see if they're willing to part with some of it for a sizable chunk of change. This is about paying for this new enterprise, which is a pay-for-play model in college athletics, which no one was prepared for. These budgets are not, so they're all looking for money. We have a UC pension fund that's offered $2.4 billion to the Big Ten to, give 9-figure checks to everybody in that league to help offset all these debts that they have with facilities and so forth. So
Beanie's shaking his head about that one.
This is all out there, and everybody's trying to be prudent and look at this carefully. But if we go to a 24-team playoff that can be augmented by somebody sponsoring it, somebody purchasing it, like they're talking about in the FCS, we might not only have the best of all of our brands getting a chance, because Vanderbilt at 10-2 will say that they deserve to be in, right? Texas with a big win over Texas A&M will say they deserve to be in. Tennessee, if they beat Vanderbilt, will say, hey, we're 9-3. Look at our 3 quality losses. We deserve to be in. Mm-hmm. And on it goes. If all of a sudden we can create this deal where we've got time in the calendar and moving the recruiting pieces back, and we can get to something where somebody's going to lay down a lot of money, and not necessarily ESPN, who's already negotiated for the next iteration of the college football playoff. They don't want to pay more. But if all of a sudden we can expand the inventory and other networks can get involved in pie pieces, this can all get much bigger fast. And at least the revenue makes sense to the college, the folks managing the college budgets.
But you're talking about the big equity people, right, Rick?
I'm talking about potentially private equity. I'm talking about big sponsors wanting to be in charge of this whole deal. As I read what I saw in this Players Era basketball tournament, Brett Yormark just bought a 15% stake in it on behalf of the Big 12. The other Power 4 conferences are all being offered the same deal. You can buy 15% of this tournament next year, and it'll be a 32-team tournament, and 80 of your schools get in. And you're sitting there going, this is going to be a big deal. It's like March Madness in November. Why wouldn't we want to be a part of that? Brett Yormark has already hit the bid. We'll wait and see. But as you look at this and all these deals being put in the heads, and the need for revenue, especially for those at the bottom of your tier, as you're trying to create competitive games for your television suitors, this makes some sense.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I just think when you start talking about expanding this thing to 24 teams, I mean, what does that do to the regular season? What does that do to the health and protection of the guys?
How was Ohio State's regular season?
Say it again.
How was Ohio State's regular season this year?
It's dang good, but talking about what does it do for everybody else in terms of, the meaningful games that you schedule in your regular season? Because if I'm Greg Sankey and we go on to 24 games, there's no way I want a 9th SEC game at this point in time. Why do I need that if I'm going 24 games? Why do I need it?
Troy agrees with you, Beanie.
Yeah, it makes no sense. 24 games is just entirely too much. Diminishes.
Beanie, if I got rid of the conference championship game,
mm-hmm.
and I got rid of some of these ridiculous non-conference games we play, so that we're playing a 12-game season and then we start the playoffs, and the top 8 teams are going to get a bye, we're not that far off from where we are currently. but we've got better games at the end of the season that make incredible amounts of money from a eyeball standpoint. And if they're home games, you know that the stands will be filled.
Hey, Rick, you know what? You mentioned the idea of the FCS playoffs being a separate entity as a property. A little bit ago, Randy and Beanie, Jason Hindis, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but he brought up this idea, and I know Rick's floated the Greisman on his radio show. But
the group of 5 Heisman.
And yes, here it is again. Here's the question again. Part of the question is, would you watch it, right? There's the once in a lifetime Boise State type of win over Oklahoma. You have bowl games where, in the past when UCF was group of 5 beating Auburn, claiming a national championship in a big bowl game. But do we need a G5 playoff? I guess next year it'll be a G6 when the Pac-12 is a full-on conference again, Randy. Like, is that an idea?
If there's somebody out there, like Rick always says, the answer is that.
The answer is money.
Somebody wants to spend the money and create a group of 5 playoff situation. Yeah. But I mean, when you've got 24 teams already in one playoff, how much of a market is there for another playoff of others? Of course.
I think the answer is unequivocally yes. Unequivocally yes. And because the paradigm of competition between the group of 5 and the Power 4 has changed. It's changed because of the transfer portal and the ability to leave. Every kid in that group of 5 that's rated as a 5-star talent, just to use that term, is being poached by the Power 4. Mm-hmm. The amount of kids that are coming from these programs to augment the rosters of the Power 4 is incredible. I talked about Texas Tech and what they did in the transfer portal. A great many of those came from the group of 5. Khalil Mack is a perfect example. Remember the great defensive player. He's had a long career in the NFL. He was a absolute warhorse playing for Buffalo, the Buffalo Bulls. I remember him playing against Ohio State, Beanie, and he put on a show, a one-man show on defense, right? Had that happened today, he would have been a Buckeye the next day. He would have been absolutely there. We were going to find a way to get Khalil Mack on Ohio State's team, and that's what's happening. So it's not fair to put them in. I understand it's fair to give them a chance at the brass ring, but we need playoffs for the group of 5 because that really represents more what college football should be in terms. And I hate to act like money's a bad thing. It's not. But the bottom line is we need those schools to have a chance to play for a brass ring as well.
I was kind of encouraged to see North Dakota State today extending Polasek, their coach.
Beautiful.
That's a prime example of this feeding frenzy that's going on, where you're taking a coach out of these kind of jobs and his quarterback and his coordinator, and you're kicking them up to the next level.
Small college coaches can coach. Kalen DeBoer started at South Dakota, right? He was a NAIA coach in Sioux Falls before he caught on this whirlwind that now has him as the head coach at Alabama. Lance Leipold at Kansas was at Wisconsin Whitewater, a Division III school, and was fantastic for getting a chance at Buffalo and getting a leg up to get to the Kansas job. We've got a number of guys. Chris Kleiman was at North Dakota State, the coach at Kansas State right now.
Well, I got a game this week. Jason Eck.
There you go. Another perfect example.
Was at Idaho. He's in 1 year. He's already 8-3. You tell
8-3. An incredible job by Eck. He whipped our alma mater, Randy. He whipped UCLA.
5-10 to be exact.
That's exactly right. There's great coaches out there, and I just think because of what we do to their rosters, we need them to be playing against light competition.
Some of them are doing it to their rosters themselves, obviously, like Kurt Cignetti leaving and taking his best of James Madison with him. Curious to see if Eric Morris, who got the Oklahoma State job, will bring Drew Mestemaker with him from North Texas.
How much you want to bet?
I was going to say, do you have any doubt?
No, not really.
The check is going to be large.
Yes. Hey, so for anyone who doesn't know who's watching, like we normally do Inside College Football, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's It's a pregame, halftime, postgame, but we're also into holiday basketball tournaments, and that's why we're here tonight. But one of our dedicated viewers, Schedule God, just said, fellas, I need a quick game of no ifs, ands, or buts, which is when we pick games, giving one thought only. Rick, you don't have to rhyme.
Oh, my goodness. Now you're putting me up against it.
No, you don't have to rhyme.
I know I don't have to, but what a disappointment it would be if I didn't.
Honestly, I think Schedule God is already playing with house money that we read his name in question. But,
there you go.
But I appreciate that he's on here, or she is on here. So let's hit this game that I think people forget about every year, because their conference play is over. But with one of the great in-state games, Georgia facing Georgia Tech. I want to say at Georgia Tech, but it's really in Atlanta. 8 overtimes last year. Haynes King almost rallied them back against Pitt. Georgia is in that top 4 slot, which they could stay there with a win and then stay there if they don't even have to go to the SEC championship game. But if A&M or Alabama lose in their in-state rivalry games, then it will be Georgia going to the SEC championship game. Beanie, you can start us off. You're going to give us your pick of who's going to win, but you can't say if, and, or but.
Man, this is tough. It's going to be so tough.
We don't even have our buzzer with us, though. So,
I'm going to start it off by saying Georgia's going to win this football game because Haynes King has shown the last couple of weeks he hasn't been on point. He's been turning the ball over. He's been off time. Brent Key and his football team have not been playing the same disciplined style football in which we're used to seeing Georgia Tech play.
You did it. All right, Randy.
I believe Georgia Tech blew their cover last year in those 8 overtimes. That was their shot to do it. And they're not playing this game at home, which is one of the great night game locations in the country. Great downtown view of downtown Atlanta, beautiful stadium at Bobby Dodd. They're playing this one in the Dome, and Georgia's more than at home in the Dome.
While King versus Stockton is like Eastwood versus Wayne, give me the Bulldogs to administer some pain.
Wow. Coming through on the YouTube live with the rhyme. No heads up. No forewarning. That's fantastic.
That's why you let me go third.
I did. I figured that would help you out. And I'll do it again here. We'll do another one, at least one. Since Aaron wasn't around to defend Notre Dame and BJ's not around to pick Texas here. Now, the Longhorns have the wins over Oklahoma and Vandy. They had a solid resume cooking. They had the loss to Florida, of course. Ohio State and Georgia, those are games everybody's going to pretty much lose at this season. But Texas against Texas A&M, and this is kind of everything the Longhorns could want in a rivalry game, in a Hail Mary of a potential win that could shake some things up. Who knows? Beanie, what do you think happens in Austin Friday night?
I honestly think Texas wins this football game. I think South Carolina laid out a blueprint to go out and beat Marcel Reed and Mike Elko's Texas A&M football team. If you throw some pressure in his face, I got me right there. You got to throw some pressure at him, and you got to be able to run the football and control the clock. And if you can do that, I think Texas can win the game. They got to get Travion Wisner and CJ Baxter going, though.
Randy.
All right. The A&M defense, I think, is a star in this game. When they played Georgia, that was what we thought was a weak spot for Georgia. Didn't turn out to be true. I think A&M is going to take Texas out.
Look at this. We're rolling video of sacks. I didn't know we had this.
Yeah.
Hook'em versus Gig'em defies all reason. Give me the Aggies to finish perfect regular season.
There you go.
Rick, are you reading that?
Another good job,
No.
Rick.
I'm sitting right here in the bowels of Phoenix Country Club.
There's no bowels there.
You got some Dr. Seuss up in you, man.
We've got bowels. We got bowels.
Hey, let's pick our CBS game before we get to the one Beanie cares about the most. Rick, this one is right up your alley, and I'm going to make you go first this time. I mean, what Washington has done at home overall, like it's 5 years now, I think, or let's see, 4 seasons, 1 home loss. It was to Ohio State this year. Dan Lanning is 44-4 at Oregon against teams not named Washington. He's 1-3 against the Huskies. Oregon top 10 in a lot of the offensive and defensive categories. Washington top 20. What are we in for here in Seattle on CBS?
This is old-fashioned hate. Old-fashioned hate. As a matter of fact, when you go to play at Oregon, they play a play from the early 90s while Don James was still coaching at Washington, which was they kind of call the turning of the page for Rich Brooks at the time and the Oregon Ducks, who had been kind of beaten down by the Washington Huskies and the power that existed in Seattle. And Damon Heward threw a pass that a guy by the name of Kenny Wheaton picked off at about the 4-yard line as the Huskies were going in to win the game. Kenny Wheaton went 96, and they play that before every Oregon game, and the entire crowd goes crazy as if they were at the game that it happened. That's how exciting that place is. And now think about all the great memories of Oregon football here past the late 90s. But that's what happened in early 1993. Kenny Wheaton, as a footnote, went to my high school. So I know Kenny, and I talk to him all the time about this particular play, and he says, I never had any idea that this would be this kind of seminal moment. But it has been the changing of the guard for Oregon football. It changed all the fundraising. Phil Knight came in, and so it's on. And the Huskies get ready for this game like no other. When Kalen DeBoer was there, he never lost to Dan Lanning. So this is really going to be a great opportunity for Jed Fish to endear himself to the Husky fans. And if he can get this one done, he's going to be on course to get a 10-win season. He'll have knocked out the Ducks out of the college football playoff, most likely, although they'll fight to say they're 10-2. What do you want from us? But at day's end, I don't think they can hang on. So huge game in Seattle on CBS.
Beanie, go ahead, man. What do you think?
I think this is going to be a tough matchup. I can't wait to watch it nonetheless. I love Damon Williams. I think he's been one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the country. He's a +1 in the run game. And Jonah Coleman, I mean, the guy, all he does is score touchdowns. But Dan Lanning and Dante Moore is just too much. They're hitting on all cylinders right now. They know what's at stake. Oregon wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dante Moore, who should still be a Bruin, but that's another subject. I really hope this game is what I think it's going to be from the standpoint of a spectacle, kind of like what Rick is describing that Autzen Stadium was like for Oregon. Having played in that place twice, Rick, you coached there. More people around the country should realize that's a fantastic place not to bring your football team and try to win a game.
It's a great home field advantage. It's a great home field advantage.
It's a fabulous home field advantage. And I think they take advantage of it, and I think they can take the Ducks out.
Yeah, Rick, what was the idea you had? We were talking about how we could land a plane there, right alongside.
So the Husky Stadium sits right on what they call Garbage Bay. Now, there's no garbage out there, but that's what they call it, and it sits right in between Seattle proper and across the lake to Bellevue. And so the 520 bridge goes across it. I used to take recruits when we were recruiting to my home. I lived in Bellevue on the water and was able to take the recruits and get them on this excursion and the whole deal. But this stadium sits with big eaves so that the sound will so that keeps the rain off the folks in the stands. But the eaves also keep the noise in. Mm-hmm. And as you walk across one of the eaves out to the press box that looks down on the field, when we played Miami in the year 2000 and beat them, which was an unbelievably good football team, it's a who's who of NFL stars. When we played them, the people that were sitting up in this press box, the film was shaking. That's how loud it got because of what was happening on the field. So this is going to be a shake-a-lot game. This is going to be shaken. Incredible power in that. And the Huskies, while probably not going to make the playoffs, this is a giant opportunity for Jedd Fisch to take another step forward in his tenure as the Washington coach. Unless, of course, he's on his way to Florida, because there is rumors that if they don't get Kiffin, Jedd Fisch might be on that list.
Ooh, the Visor family.
You know, Jed got his job at Florida. He was a student there, didn't play football, by putting notes on Steve Spurrier's car. Literally just telling him, I want to be a student assistant. Tell me where to be and when to be there. And finally, the ball coach said, all right, Jebi, come on, we're going to make you a coach.
That's a determined man right there.
That's a determined man.
I think that's called stalking.
Depending, you know.
However you look at it.
Exactly.
Rick, isn't that how we ended up at the OJ trial too?
So Jed, I worked with Jed at Baltimore, and where he and I became very good friends, coaching for the Ravens. And Jed, instead of the typical spring break at the University of Florida, and we headed to Daytona or something like that for the beach antics, he decided it was 1994. I want to go to the OJ trial. I've been watching Judge Ito every day. I want to go check this out in Los Angeles. So he flies out there. His dad says, you're going to Los Angeles? He goes, Dad, it's going to be a great trip. I'm going to learn about the law, the whole deal. Unbeknownst to Jed, he doesn't realize you just can't walk into the trial. They give out 75 raffle tickets for people to get into the trial, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people trying to get these tickets, so he doesn't get them. Well, that just won't work for Jed. So he went and got his dad's credit card and went and bought himself a suit and a briefcase to make him look like a young attorney, and went the next day when the ticket didn't get picked. When the limos pulled up with the dream team, the Johnny Cochrans, the Robert Shapiros, and all the different people, when they all pulled up, he hopped in with them and walked in like he was part of the team. When they were going up in the elevator, Robert Shapiro looked at him and said, who the hell are you? He goes, Jedd Fisch, freshman, University of Florida. And the rest is history.
The rest is
wow.
I told you that's a determined guy.
That's a determined guy. Determined guy.
Well, Dan Lanning's pretty determined as well, as we've seen in some of the features that we've run. Of his
absolutely.
Motivation and some of the cool behind the scenes things we've seen. So you know who's going to be rooting for Washington, especially if they win. Really, only if they win, it'll matter, is Michigan. If they can beat Ohio State and then have Washington beat Oregon, Michigan, Indiana is your Big Ten championship. I know we talked about this game about 40 minutes ago or so. Beanie, what would you say is the mental, I don't want to call it fortitude. I mean, like the determination of the Buckeyes this time around? Because Jeremiah Smith, it seems like it's more important that they win this game now that they've got the national championship from last year.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, losing the game last year in the fashion in which they lost it, trying to play Michigan's style of play and not playing the style of play in which got you to the point of winning the national championship was kind of mind-blowing. I think everybody was scratching their head about that. But the level of determination for this team has to be through the roof, because like you guys talked about earlier, you can't afford to lose a fifth game to this rival. And, you know, dare I say it, I would hate for it to happen because I love the guy and I don't want to speak about him in this light, but Ryan Day would inch closer into that John Cooper type conversation in terms of having great teams but not being able to beat your rival. But most certainly, I think that he's able to get it done. He's galvanized this football team, and Michigan's been that bully to him, and I think he's finally ready to look that bully in the eye and go toe-to-toe with him and get over that hump. This is an important game, but nonetheless, they're not going to, be able to do it without all the horses in the stable. You're going to have Jeremiah Smith out there on the football field to do it, because you do not want to get into a dogfight in a phone booth with the University of Michigan, because they can run the ball and play physical in the trenches with the best of them.
Especially with that phone booth is in Ann Arbor this time around, Randy. I mean, last year, Ohio State had McCord, Trevi. They had two great running backs who are in the NFL now to go with all of these weapons. You could even argue that Ohio State's team, at least on paper last year, was better and didn't overachieve until the playoff came. And we're also in this era where you can lose to your rival in the final week of the regular season and then still go not only to your conference championship game, but even win the national championship. It used to be like the occasional Alabama moment where they could lose the Iron Bowl and then still get into the playoff with the one loss. Gone are the days of your rival completely ruining your season if you're coming into it undefeated, Randy. But what do you think? Do you think Ohio State's is set up better this time around, or is it Michigan that's not set up as well?
I think Beanie gives you a pretty good window into the Ohio State, not only mindset, but what they're physically prepared for. If they don't have both of their wide receivers, then it tends to turn into a little bit more. Now you can allow for one Jonathan Smith or Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
You can allow for him defensively and make it more of a phone booth game. They're not a phone booth style team to me. But Julian saying that's the guy that I think has the better part of this game in his hands, only because Simpson turned the ball over for Alabama, and that's what kind of cost them a week or two ago. If Sand can hold on to the ball, if Sand can have a receiver step up to help Smith, then you can avoid a phone booth game. Because what the last thing, like Beanie was saying, the last thing they want to do is get in a phone booth game with Michigan. If they can make it high tech, great. If it goes dial up, they're in deep doo-doo.
Which is exactly what happened to them last year.
Yes.
Somehow, some way, the year before, they felt like this was a tough guy deal. And we want Ryan and the offensive staff wanted to play a tough guy game against these guys. And because of it, it was a low scoring game, which played right into the hands of what Michigan football wants you to play. They want to shorten the game. They want to make it just 7-on-7, 9-on-7 drill, right? Mm-hmm. When you have the different high flyers that Ohio State has outside, and whether or not Carnell Tate's able to play. I mean, if you watch the NFL on Sundays, you're watching at least 6 different Ohio State former receivers that are high flyers. Jackson Smith and Jigma is on schedule to have over 2,000 yards receiving, which has never been done in the NFL. He's on schedule to do that. He's one of many, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. is out there. I mean, there's tons of them. So there are other guys on Ohio State that can fill in for Carnell Tate, but you cannot make this a phone booth game. You did that a year ago. You're playing into their hands. I know you want to be out tough them. I know you want to say, to the Jack Sawyers, we're tougher than they are in the world. But at this game, you need to use what you have are your strengths, which is that high-flying ability to throw the ball and a quarterback that has been brilliant. Nearly 80% as a passer for much of the season is remarkable for your first time going through a regular season.
Good stuff, gentlemen. I will remind you that Superman is the guy who comes out of the phone booth on a good day. Jason appreciated your Jed Fish story very much, Rick. I had to have you tell that. We didn't pick this game yet, and we've talked about Miami a lot, but Big Yoda the man entering the chat saying you won't have to worry about Miami after Pitt beats them. And I think it's just a good reminder of the challenge that awaits.
Game
that
for
game
Miami.
That's at Pittsburgh. Who do you guys think wins that game? Miami at Pitt? Because then we don't have to even have the Miami Notre Dame conversation if Pitt wins.
Personnel-wise, Miami should win the game. Personnel-wise. Mm-hmm. But Pat Narduzzi and this Pitt team have that it. They are tougher than nails. Narduzzi has always been great against the run, and we've seen Carson Beck not come through when it's put on his shoulders. It was the case at Louisville. It was the case in the overtime against SMU. If they can make him uncomfortable in the pocket, Pitt can win this game. But if you're just drafting these two teams, you're going to take a lot more Miami players than you are going to take Pitt players.
I think you got to go and look at, Pat Narduzzi and think that he has had an additional week to prepare for this game, because he came out and flat out said it. He's not worried about Notre Dame. He wasn't worried about Notre Dame. He had all his focus on teams in the ACC. What did they do? Go out and dominate the first half of that game last week versus Georgia Tech. And I bet your butt they've been preparing for this Miami game just as much. So I do believe Pat Narduzzi and Pitt can get this done, and we won't be talking about Miami because Carson Beck in big games, he struggles. He
You're
can't
looking
not
after
turn
your
the
guy.
ball
You're
over.
just looking after your guy, Marcus Freeman. I got you figured out. You're just looking after him.
Maybe just a little bit. I'm taking AT's place worrying about Notre Dame and their safety.
There you go.
Well, the greatest press conference in the last couple of weeks for me was when they asked Narduzzi about before Notre Dame, what do you think about this game? Blah, blah, blah. Will there be a measuring stick for your football team? He goes, hey, we could lose to them. No big deal. It's not even a conference game. And you had to look at that and sort of go, wow, okay, that's cool. Then you watch the game. Then you watch the way they came out and played last week against Tech. If I'm Miami and company getting ready to play these guys, try to find a real weakness for Pitt. They don't have many real weaknesses. They don't have any incredible strengths, in my mind, besides the fact they're a bunch of tough-ass SOBs. And I think they take Miami out.
There you go. Gentlemen, is there anything you want to add at this point? We've been cooking for about an hour. We got our rankings out earlier. Anything besides actually what I do need to know, what's your first trip to the Thanksgiving buffet gonna be filled with? What's that plate gonna look like? Mine is gonna be whatever they give us at CBS because we have Duke Arkansas basketball and a quadruple header. But I'll see you on Friday, Rick.
I look forward to it. Listen, happy Thanksgiving to one and all. We've got to be thankful for the great game of college football and certainly all of college athletics as we transition into the other seasons. It's a wonderful deal. All of us have had a chance to have the best of college athletics, and it's been a treat to have been part of it. I think what I am looking forward to in terms of the meal doesn't matter until we get to the pumpkin pie. The pumpkin pie is my absolute go-to. I only have it during this time of year. And if I can see any pie, I've made a terrible mistake because I want the whipped cream to cover the entirety of it.
Oh, wow.
I am, call me weak, but I just can't get by without it.
Thought it through.
Yep. I'm going to fire up my smoker and do a spatchcock 22-pound turkey.
Damn.
Which will be pretty fun. We got all this trimmings and sides and stuff. And Rick, we didn't go pumpkin pie, but we went kind of the next level on pumpkin pie. We went pumpkin pie cheesecake.
Oh,
with plenty of whipped cream.
There you go.
Well, I'm with you, man. I'm not firing up the smoker, but I am getting my deep fryer ready so I can deep fry my 22-pound turkey. And that's my first go-to right there. I love the skin on that thing. Nice and juicy. Can't wait to have it.
Make sure you do it outside, Beanie. That house looks too nice to be doing a turkey anywhere near that
house. Now we've got Iowa, Nebraska, Boise State, Utah State on Friday on CBS, San Diego State, New Mexico as well on CBS Sports Network. Which
I'm
follows,
doing that.
And that's your game, Randy. I was going to ask you if you're traveling.
Yeah, New Mexico, San Diego State.
That's a great game.
That's
San
a great
Diego
game.
State in the Mountain West Championship with the win.
We talked about Jason Eck, who's their head coach. They're 8-3, and no one's saying anything about San Diego State. All they've done is they're 10-1 right now. Going into the last game, they're ahead.
I'm hearing Sean Lewis and Bob Chesney at UCLA. They're both under heavy consideration.
Yeah, wow. He's a hell of a coach.
And San Diego State, I think it was because that game at Hawaii where they got pounded, but they backed it up. They backed up and beat Boise to set themselves up here for this opportunity at New Mexico. And then, of course, we got the Oregon-Washington game Saturday. And then, Beanie, are you in studio Saturday?
I'm in Stanford Saturday. So the other studio.
The other studio, HQ. All right. Very good, gentlemen. This was fun. Now that we've done it, I'm sure we'll do it again. And let's see if the boss wrote, we can wrap it up. The boss is Amy, and she's got to fly out for the turducken Chiefs Cowboys.
Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Dallas.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.